everyone, and welcome to the Space to Exhale podcast, a safe, serene sanctuary where we focus on high vibrations, affirmations, soft living, and self care. I'm your host, Lisa Hurley. I'm a 3-time Anthem Award winning activist, a Reiki master, and the author of Space to Exhale, a handbook for curating a soft, centered, serene life. I am here. Alexis is laughing because, listen, the behind the scenes, right? But nevertheless, I am here to help us all. We're going to help each other. Help us all do just that. Relax, take a breath, say no to hustle culture, and yes to a life of ease. And my hope and dream is for us all to curate lives that we don't feel we need a break from. And today, I am super excited to introduce to you an amazing human being, my friend, and my very first guest, Alexis Mobley. So let me tell you, yes. So let me tell you a little bit about Miss Alexis. Alexis is an ICF certified executive coach and the founder of I Matter Coaching and Consulting. With 20 plus years at IBM, JP Morgan Chase, Capital One, and TransUnion, she knows what it means to lead under pressure and what it costs to shrink in the process. She works with senior leaders and organizations ready to lead with more self-awareness, intention, and audacity. Her clients don't want scripts. They want to lead like they mean it. The heat in her work, fully intentional. Now, what? That is a bio and a half, Ms. Alexis. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. I have been looking forward to this. Ever since you asked me, it has been rattling around in the back of my head, like, what do we talk about? What do we talk about? Because as you know, boundaries covers a vast array of areas within our personal and professional lives. So I am excited for today's conversation and
Yes.
the chat.
And the chat, right? Because I think the conversation is going to be a mix of serene and spicy. And listen, listeners, I'm just letting you know, right? Edges will be snatched, tea will be served. Like that is just how Alexis moves. So that is going to be the vibes, right? But like last time and like all the times in the future, before we get started, and heaven knows, Alexis, we need it today, right? Before we get started, let us take a moment to exhale together. Let us get grounded and take a few deep breaths. So close your eyes, relax your jaw, lower your shoulders. Think of something lovely and beautiful and harmonious that makes you happy. And now we're going to inhale and exhale. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. One more time. Inhale and exhale. Woo! Yes. Like I said, much needed today, much needed every day. Time to take a breath. So, like you alluded to earlier, Miss Alexis, when we were thinking about, okay, like, what do we want to talk about on this episode? You said boundaries. And I said, oh, heck yeah, absolutely. We are going to talk about boundaries. So my first question for you is, what was your first memory of realizing that boundaries are not just optional, but necessary for your survival and for the survival of everyone, for the survival and sanity of Black women? When was that first time for you?
So first, let me preface. Let me lay the foundation. Let me add a
You
little
do that.
context.
Do you? Because this is
So,
your show.
so number one, let me define what I believe boundaries are.
Yes.
To me, boundaries are guardrails. I think oftentimes we believe that boundaries are these protective mechanisms that we erect in order to keep people away. And to a
Mm-hmm.
certain degree, yes, that can be true. But if I think of a highway, we have guardrails on either side to keep us on the road. And so if we
Mm-hmm.
think of boundaries in the same capacity, boundaries keep us on the road. They keep us, from bumping into one another. They keep us from staying stuck in the same place. They keep us from going off the road most times. And the other tidbit I'll add is your girl wasn't always deep in these boundary streets. Okay.
Listen,
I
same.
am an in process, many years in process recovering people pleaser perfectionist. Okay. So it was not my default to look at boundaries as this thing that I needed to erect, because I always had the fear of, oh my God, what if that person's feelings were hurt? So back
Mm-hmm.
to your question about my first memory, when I worked at IBM. So my former career before I became an executive coach, I worked in technology. So my undergrad is in computer science, and I thought my entire career I was going to be hands on keyboard, twiddling the bits, right? That's what I designed my life to be. But if you spend any time with me, my personality is, you don't put baby in the corner. Okay. I don't have the corner personality. And so fast forward, I ultimately moved into program and project management. And in one meeting, there weren't many. So in tech, there weren't a lot of women at the time,
Right.
and there were very few Black women.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the only Black woman in this meeting. And this gentleman, let's call him Jay. Jay decided that today was the day. Today was the day that he was going to make a joke. And his joke was, I'm just going to have my girls take the meeting notes.
No.
And I'm
His
like,
girls.
his girls. Now, also additional context, I worked at IBM at the time where they were not about the shits and the giggles. The shits or the giggles.
Neither one.
Not at all, right? You still needed to wear suits, okay?
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
there was no ability, even if I had it within me, there was no ability to pop off in the meeting, even if I wanted to be professionally petty, which is my favorite lane to play in today. But anyway,
Yes.
so I knew that Jay and I needed to have a conversation afterwards.
Mm.
And I calmly, now I will say, because I was deep in the people pleasing and perfectionist streets at that time, I was so nervous because I still was concerned about his feelings, even though in that meeting he expressed a joke at my expense. Right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Now, one more piece of context about who I am. This was my origin story. This is where I learned to curse somebody out with a smile on my face. So Jay and I had a conversation, and I asked Jay to stay afterwards. And I said, "Hey, can you tell me what you meant about I'll have my girls take notes?" And he goes, "Oh, and I shouldn't even have to mention
Yeah,
who Jay
I
is."
already know.
Okay,
I
okay,
know. I
okay,
know.
okay,
Yes.
okay.
And listen, it's one of those, if you know,
If
you
you
know.
know, you know. Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So I said, help me understand, what did you mean by I'll have my girls take notes? He was like, "Oh, no. It was just a joke." I said, oh, I'm sorry, Lisa. For
You
whoever is on here, it might be a few spicy words today, just as a heads up. So I
listen, that's
explained
why
to
I
him.
told him. I told him at the beginning, spicy and serene. Spicy and serene. It's gonna be a mix.
So
It's gonna be a mix.
I said, "Jay, don't you ever come out your motherfucking mouth again with anything like that." I said, "We are peers. At no point should you ever A, refer to me as girl, and two, B, 2, 1, 2,
The second one.
2, yes,
Secondly.
yes,
Yes.
refer, try to assign work to me as if you own me, as if I report to you.
Mhm.
Don't do that again." I said, because I am going to tell you very frankly, very candidly, very straight up. The next time this happens, we will not be having an offline conversation. Because at that moment, I said, if you choose the venue for violence, there will be violence in said venue. Because
If
at
you
that
go
point,
public, it's gonna stay public.
correct. So
Yeah.
that's when I knew at that point I needed to advocate for myself, because
Mhm.
no one else in that room made a comment. People laughed along with it. So I
Mm.
knew that to protect me, I needed to stand up. I don't care if I was shaking. I don't care if my voice was quivering. None of it. I needed to stand up for myself. And again, I didn't have a ton of self-esteem, but I had enough to know, not on my watch.
Ain't no way, and yeah,
Ain't
ain't
no
no
way.
way,
Ain't
ain't
no
no
way.
way. So okay, so that was time number one, right? So obviously, like you've continued on through life, right? Judiciously and as required, cussing people out and putting them, basically checking people, right? And so, but how is it? How have you managed to continue that? Because if you are like me, like many of us, like we were raised to be accommodating, to be nice, to
Yeah.
cede the floor, to shrink ourselves, to take up
Yeah.
less space, right? So yeah, you had that one moment of bravery, but how did you go on to make that into many moments of advocating for yourself in order to, reclaim your space and your agency?
It is a committed, lifelong daily practice.
Mm.
This is the misconception or misperception that people have about boundaries, about personal development, that you reach an end state.
Ah,
No,
yes.
boo. No. So let me give you an example. So, we're gonna talk about all the things today. Okay, whatever.
Let's do it.
So Sunday, PMS had me in the throes, like in the grip of things, right?
Yes, yes.
And I had a meeting on the books Monday at 10 a.m. And old me reared its head in terms of,
Mm.
okay, I got to plow through, because this meeting it was an intro call. It was the first time, like, I've connected with her on LinkedIn. We have a couple of mutuals, and it was the first time that we were going to speak one on one. And the meeting had been on the books for like 2.5, 3 weeks. And Sunday, I was just out of it. And Monday, I woke up and I'm like, okay, I can try. I can plow through. I can plow through. And often we look at boundaries externally. We think of boundaries must be with other people. Baby, boundaries are with self. And so what
Mm.
I had to talk to myself to say, look, okay, you are looking raggedly. Okay. There's no way that I can judge any of what's happening up in order to be camera ready, to be ready to have a conversation where my brain is functioning by 10 a.m. It was 8 o'clock. Okay. And
Yes,
so,
yes.
and I hate to do last minute cancellations, because I don't ever want to be disrespectful or of someone's time.
Mhm.
But I had to honor the boundary that I did not have the capacity to show up. Now, here's the other thing that I also had to accept. I had to accept if that person chose not to reschedule with me, because
Yes.
that may be a boundary that they have. Boundaries are, your favorite phrase, Lisa, they are bidirectional.
Bidirectional and mutually beneficial.
Correct. I don't take it personally if this person,
Mhm.
chooses not to reschedule. I apologize. I did the very best that I can with the situation, and that is sometimes the cost of a boundary. Someone
Right.
may have a boundary that differs from yours, and that's perfectly okay.
Mhm.
It's perfectly okay. So it's a consistent daily practice.
Yeah, yeah. If I may, I had a actually similar experience up to today where I mean, as a friend of mine, you have an idea of what the past year has been like. That's a story for another time, right? But someone had two people actually had invited me to do written interviews. Literally, I think one was early this year, one was last year, right? Now, I didn't like ghost them. There had been communication, but long story short, I didn't do the interview. So I finally have a bit more space exhale, and I'm like, well, I'm going to reach back out. And I started off because my boundary for me was knowing at that time, I had told them, I can't do this right now. I can't do this. If it's okay with you, I will reach, back out when I have a bit more bandwidth, right? And so, which I did, right? That was my boundary to protect myself. I led with an apology, even though I had explained the situation. I did lead with an apology, and I said once again, sorry for not, completing the interview. If you are still okay with it, because like you said, they might have had a boundary where they might have been like, oh no, we're not doing this now, right? I led with an apology. I humbled myself, led with an apology, and said, if you are still open to it, we can move forward. Let me know. Right. And then, like you said, that opened it up to them to decide, okay, do we want to move forward or not? Fortunately, they both said yes. But yeah, boundaries they're not meant to harm anyone. They're not meant to harm anyone. They're not, quote unquote, having an attitude. They're not, quote unquote, being angry. It actually is sort of steeping, one of our favorite words, like tea. We'll get to that again later. But it is steeping yourself in the energy of self-love and self-care. That is what it's about. It's you knowing, it's you loving yourself enough to say, I cannot do this right now. I cannot.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because boundaries do equate to self-love.
Yes.
Boundaries equate to knowing what you have the ability and the capacity to do. And boundaries must be communicated.
Yes, indeed.
It is easy to say I have a boundary if someone crossed it. However, if you've never communicated to someone that this is a boundary, this is a line that you prefer they not cross, how will they know? They won't. Was it last week before? Time has no relevance. In 2025, I had a conversation with a client, and they were curious about boundaries and how they would go about it. Because to your point earlier, they didn't want to get into a fight with this other person, and they didn't want to feel guilty about not providing, not being able to meet all of the quote unquote demands that this other person had. So I said, okay, great, let's role play it. And they were like, wait, what? I'm like, okay, this is the space where we test stuff out. We workshop it. Let's figure out how you can erect a boundary. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Like, are you uncomfortable saying these words? How does it feel the more you practice it? And by the end of it, they were like, oh, that's a lot easier than I thought. Because what they realized was that, as you said, boundaries aren't meant to, wall people off completely. Boundaries are meant to convey to people, here's what I have the capacity to deliver for you.
Yeah.
If that works for you, great. Right. If it doesn't,
yes.
Also great. Sorry.
Also great. And let me give an example actually from you and I. Okay. So no. For example, because like I said, people often think that boundaries are in some way like, having an attitude or something of that nature. The boundary with you and I is when once again, how this past year has been. I was going through what I call proofreading gate. Again, a story for another time. And I emailed, if I ever recover enough to talk about it publicly. But I reached out to you to ask, hey, I need some help with XYZ. Are you able to do it? Right? Now, let's say if between us, we have asked each other various things, it could be 10 o'clock at night. Hey, can you, I need to talk, and I actually need to talk right now. Are you available? The answer is either yes or no, right? It's either yes or no. And as much as possible, we try to show up for each other. This time you were like, oh my gosh, I wish I could, but I have, these 10 other things that I need to do at that same time, right? Okay. You see what I'm saying? Literally no problem. because you have to, I prefer that rather than that you did that rather than saying, okay, sure. And then, being overwhelmed, getting resentful, not being able to follow through on it, et cetera, et cetera. And this is why I say boundaries help everyone involved. They are for self-love. They're a measure of self-love, but also either love, care, consideration for the other person as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then, so that was something that, you just rightly said no to, but on the flip side, as soon as I said, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? Absolutely. You have time. Now you have time. Now
Right.
you're able to, right? And it has worked both ways, right? There are times when you're like, okay, Lisa, can you help me with XYZ? I can, but it needs to be, like it needs to be 3 weeks from now, right?
Look, it's not a hard no. It's a not right now.
It's a not right now, and that is
Yeah.
okay. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I love that because, and there's also, Tammy Triolo in our little, trifecta of amazingness. And we're just honest with each other, right? No, I can't make that meeting. Yes, I can show up at X time, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all okay.
Now, can I add something? Let's throw the sticky wicket in there, okay?
Oh, please do.
In my personal experience, as well as anecdotal experience working with clients, it can feel easier to have boundaries professionally.
Yes.
Personally, woo, that's a whole other conversation. Like, I cannot tell you the number of people that I've worked with women, let me just say that, women who I've worked with who,
let's just call a thing a thing. Let's just call a thing a thing. Yeah.
Black women who I've worked with who are so entrenched, and I don't exclude myself from this as well, but I'll explain how I have worked through it. They're so entrenched in the family dynamic of what would my mom say? What would my dad say? I don't want to piss off my dad. I don't want to piss off my mom. Because culturally, you and I both know there are a lot of expectations on many of us that a lot of us children carry. Culturally, you go out into the world with a set of tools, and those tools are meant to protect you. Unfortunately, sometimes those tools can be limiting. So, for example, how do I genericize this? Because that's the one thing that if you've ever worked with me, you know that I am very much about keeping the confidentiality of the people that I work with.
Yes.
So when I say they, I'm very intentional in that. Specifically, those are my boundaries. Those are my professional boundaries. But an individual that I worked with, they were navigating family dynamics where the patriarch of the household had certain expectations for girls, women in the family. And that was not aligned with how they saw their life.
Right.
Well, they had been on this planet for some decades, right? And were stuck in the throes of navigating this continued expectation from this patriarchal figure. But yet the cost was their sanity. The cost was their happiness. The cost was internal suffering.
Yeah.
Internal angst, because they could not see a way out. And the one thing that my mom told me, and when she said this, I was like, girl, what? You are batshit crazy. You have to be. She said, you don't owe anyone a justification for your life, including me.
Ooh. That's deep. That's deep. Because so many of us are taught the exact opposite. Like if you are going to quote unquote, whether you want to call it, set a boundary, potentially disappoint someone, et cetera, you are supposed to provide a scroll as long as the Declaration of Independence of reasons why this thing is happening and why you can't do it, Yeah.
Yes. And sometimes the answer is because I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of adults, that is a very difficult thing to say to their parent. I don't want
Yes.
to.
Yes.
And so working with clients, it's helping them remember, I understand you feel as if you're a little kid, telling your parent something, but can we, get back to the present moment? You got 4 kids yourself. So
Mm.
you're telling me that you're afraid to say because I don't want to your mom, but you have children yourself. You are a fully actualized adult. And
Yeah.
I want to be very clear. I'm not saying being disrespectful to your parent.
Not at all.
I'm not
No, no,
saying
no.
that at all. I'm
Yeah.
saying that when it comes time to you living your life, doing things that you want to do or don't want to do, you're going to disappoint someone inevitably.
Mm-hmm.
That's just waking up on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
You have disappointed someone by virtue of you saying no, by virtue of you not answering a text message, by
Yeah.
virtue of you not forgetting to return a phone call. You have disappointed someone. That's just the default. But
Mm-hmm.
and that is a mind-boggling concept for people to conceptualize because they're chasing the thrill of, I got to make sure I don't disappoint. I got to make sure I don't disappoint. Babes, my dress color could disappoint somebody.
Right. And listen, let me just say, as Black women, we know this all too well. Sometimes just by dint of us existing, somebody is pissed off because we
Yes.
walk into the room, or we are, sashing our way through, I don't know, Times Square on our way to the office. I don't know, whatever it happens to be, right? And people look at us and think, who does she think she is?
Yes.
Why is she showing up like this? She gets on my nerves. Meanwhile, she hasn't done anything.
No.
We have just shown up existing, and
Lisa,
somebody is pissed off because of that.
I want to share a story.
Please do.
So when I
Why are you laughing already?
because this has been at least 20 years ago and it still tickles me. Okay.
Hmm.
So for many years, I've not given a damn about a lot of things. Okay. A lot of years. Right. So this one young lady that I worked with, we'll call her F. She,
Will we now?
look,
What
we
of all the letters to choose, but it's okay.
fine. We call her something else, but F. That's what her name began with. I'm trying to
I
protect the
love, I
child.
love F. I love F.
So F could not stand me.
Ooh.
Like, hated my guts because, according to what she told other people, it was exactly what you just said. I thought I was X, Y, and Z. I thought I was
Mm-hmm.
better than everyone else. I thought I was, above everyone. I thought all these things, right? When in actuality, I was not giving her anything. Like what I understand now is she was very much internally
Mm.
at war with herself. And the
Yes.
reason why I say that is for some very specific reasons based on her comments. Her comments was she hated me because I had quote unquote good hair.
What?
She hold on, there's context. She was a dark-skinned sister
Mm.
with kinky textured hair.
With 4C here. Yeah, yeah, got you.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I don't like her because she thinks she all that with good hair, right? Now, I have not had any interactions with this woman except for good morning F, good evening F.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, because we were never on the same projects, but we sat in the same aisle.
Right.
Now, what makes this even funnier to me? F was pissed at me, my mere existence. And she wanted to get a rise out of me, but I did not care because we never worked on the same projects. I didn't have to interact with her. She didn't impact my paycheck. So
okay, hold on. Can I we need to
yes,
pause because
yes.
why she did not impact my paycheck. She did not impact your paycheck. And I want more people, I'm repeating it because that is important, right?
Baby.
Sometimes that is the question that you need to ask. Is this impacting something serious? Right? Like, we won't go into it now, but go back to where we were before we started this episode. Is this something life threatening, or is something major hanging in the balance? No. Is it impacting your paycheck? If it isn't, move on.
So a friend of mine many years ago introduced me to a phrase. And I classified F as a NMFF.
I think I understand what it is. You know what? We are going to we'll put that in the show notes. I think this might be another case of, if you know, you know.
If you know. Correct.
Right. But yeah, listen, there are several people, a lot of colleagues as well, right? Let's also normalize. I know we're going off topic a bit, but let's also normalize categorizing people correctly, because there are a lot of people that are NMFF, right? But they're an acquaintance, they're a colleague, they're whatever they happen to be, and it's okay. Everybody can't be your FF. They can't. Okay,
Lisa, I think that speaks to the parameters that you have around self, because for me personally, and I am like this, anyone who knows me, how I show up on LinkedIn is how I show up offline, right?
I can attest to that.
Everybody ain't got access to me, and that's by design, because you shouldn't.
And that's a boundary. And that's a boundary, because you can't be always, you are not a streaming service. You can't be always on and available to everyone all the time. You're not Wi-Fi. Okay.
And let's be honest, I know my personality. I don't vibe with a lot of folks. And that's not because, again, I think I'm better than. It's just that, and we've had this conversation.
Yes.
When you are a person who is able to pick up on someone's energy, I don't align with a lot of people's energy. And so to keep my sanity, we can be acquaintances, but in that COT, that circle of trust, very few, very far in between.
I want to add, there's something that you shared with me a long time ago about the circle of trust. It was I think you literally drew it, right?
Probably.
Yes. There was also NMFB, with the last word being business.
Oh, facts.
Right?
Facts.
And a lot of people, if they're not in your inner circle, in the circle of trust or whatever.
Okay. So I'll clean this up for people. Yeah. So
bearing in mind that my mom, by the way, off camera, Alexis is lovely, Mama Bear. But she cusses just like your baby daughter. I'm sorry.
So Stephen Covey has a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes.
And in there he talks about I always get these confused, but go with me. And I'll send this over in the show notes for you too, Lisa.
Absolutely. Yes.
The circle of concern and the circle of influence. And so how I've translated that for my clients, basically your circle of concern, those are the things that you actually can you have control over, right? Anything outside of that, you don't. So when I work with my clients, I have them draw 2 circles: the circle of concern, the circle of influence. And I have them rename them. The circle of concern, the stuff that you have direct control over, is my shit. The stuff that you don't have control over, not my shit.
Not my shit.
So
Not
if
my
you
circus, not my monkeys.
correct. So if you
Yep.
find yourself focusing on all of these aspects outside of your control, your influence, things that you cannot directly um, change, let's just say, for example, the weather. What can you do about that?
Mhm.
Not nothing. So why are we stressed over it? Why are we giving and pouring all of that energy into something we cannot change? That is not your shit. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, as Black women, because again, society, family, culture, all the layers, we have presumed that things are things we should care and concern ourselves with because here's the fallacy, quote unquote, if I don't do it, it won't get done. So that's the problem. Is that always a problem? But I
Yeah.
don't think we allow ourselves to answer the question honestly to say it might be okay if it doesn't get done. And it's also okay if it's not done by me.
Ooh.
One more time.
Yes.
It's okay if it's not done by me.
Listen, let somebody else do it. That is that 92% energy, right? That we're on right now. Black women, again, if you know, you know. Maybe we need to retitle this episode and just call it If You Know, You Know, right? But it is 92% energy, right? We are not doing more than we need to. Let somebody else handle it. That is a boundary. That is a boundary right there. Let somebody else do it. We can protect our energy.
But again, that's self. That is
Yeah.
self-led, self-directed, excuse me, self-guided. That's
Mhm.
not external. You have to have that inner conversation with self to work on, yeah, I might feel uncomfortable allowing this to quote unquote fall on the floor.
Mhm.
Okay. It gets a little bit, you get more comfortable. The more you step outside the bubble, or the
Mhm.
more you stretch the comfort zone bubble, let's say it that way. The more you stretch the
Yes.
bubble,
Yes. Yes.
the more the bubble stretches.
Mhm.
And that
I
sounds
love
simple,
that.
but it is. The more you stretch the bubble, the more it
The
stretches.
bubble stretches. I love that. Oh wow. Okay, so I have one more question for you. I mean, I have several more. I think you're gonna have to come back, but you know, that's something that we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
discuss later. So, um, the other question I have for you is, in what ways do boundaries help you experience more joy, creativity, softness? In what ways do they help you make space to exhale in your life?
I'm gonna give you an example. So
Please
a
do.
client
I love your stories
look,
and
so
examples.
a client 2 years ago,
Hmm.
in this instance, I'll use her gender. She had children
Hmm.
and she was like a PTA mom, right? She was also stressed because she didn't have capacity to do the things that she enjoyed. She was a
Hmm.
huge, like, she enjoyed hobbies. Let's say that. She enjoyed all the hobbies, but she didn't have space for them because she was doing the PTA stuff. Anytime they called her, like last minute, she would, yep, I got it, sign up for it. If they needed someone to sub in, again, yep, I got it, I'm there. Then when we were talking, she was expressing all of this resentment that she had around them doing all the things.
Hmm.
So the first thing I said was, okay, well, oh, so then her coping mechanism was to, this was before Target went all crazy.
Right.
She would walk through Target to calm
Mhm.
down. And inevitably, you know, you can't, back in the day, you couldn't leave Target without spending at least $100, right?
Listen, at least.
At least, even though you got like 2 items in your cart. Anyway, so the first thing I said was, okay, so great. Homework this week is, so full transparency. If anybody has worked with me and I am
Mhm.
providing you with a exercise, a homework, and I'm smiling, just know you not gonna have fun. So I smiled.
I know. But anyway, I
So
forgive you though. I forgive you. I forgive you.
so I said the first thing your homework until our next session is you're on a no buy. There's no shopping.
Mm-hmm.
and you are divesting from
Mm.
these PTA activities. And she was, you know how the fish, when you bring them out on land from the water and they're flopping and the mouth is just like open, close, open, close. So her question was, well, what do I do with myself? Now, ma'am, stop playing. We sat up here and had a whole conversation about you don't have time for your hobbies. And we just said you are divesting from all the things that are taking you away from the hobbies. What are you asking me? Where, what?
Do the hobbies.
So come back the next week and she goes, you know what? I didn't appreciate how hard it would be to say no
Mm.
because she had become accustomed through her own behavior of saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she didn't have capacity, she no longer wanted to. She just had built up the muscle,
It was a
if you
habit.
will. It was
Yeah.
a habit for her. But the next week, that third week, she was like, hold on, this feels freeing. Like
Yeah.
I don't have to run to the grocery store to pick up a fruit plate to take it to the event. She was like, oh my Lord, why didn't I do this before? So when you
Mm.
ask how does it free up your capacity and peace, you're no longer worried and fretting and stressing about things that are not yours to worry, stress, or fret about.
Mm-hmm.
You are
Mm-hmm.
focused on you, or as you know, the saying goes, you are minding the business that pays you.
Yes, indeed.
And
Yes, indeed.
again, that's not saying that you automatically strip everybody and everything out of your life, but
Mm-hmm.
it does require you to evaluate and get very clear on, do I need to do this? Do I continue to enjoy this? Do I want to continue whatever this particular activity is? And it is absolutely okay to give yourself permission to stop, to
Oh my
change
God.
your mind, to do something different.
Well, listen, I have an as always, right? I have an affirmation. And unsurprisingly, you basically just encapsulated it. And today's affirmation, I'll just do it now because this is where we are, right? Today's affirmation is, I am giving myself permission to say no. I am giving myself permission to say no. I am giving myself permission to say no.
Mm,
Because that is how we um, build the muscle of proactive self-care and build the muscle of setting boundaries that serve our highest good. That is how we do it.
Lisa, I would also invite listeners, if
Mm-hmm.
you are still uncomfortable with no, no problem. Before you say no, pause.
Mm.
Because a lot of us are in the habit, our default is yes. There's no space in between the ask and the response. Give yourself a 10-second pause. And in that moment, truly evaluate, do I really want to do this? If the answer is no, it's okay to say no. Or if you don't feel comfortable saying no in that moment, ask, hey, can I get back to you tomorrow?
Yes. Yes.
Insert that pause and see how, again, how freeing it feels, how much more comfortable you feel with no. And let me just tell you, no, that sucker is not a bad word, because if you were to go into, for those of you who have 9 to 5 jobs, if you were to go in your boss's office today and just say, hey, I want a $20 million raise, would your boss hesitate to say no? Nope, not at all.
And
No.
and you would likely find yourself
Well,
without a job, period.
there would be some conversation.
There would be
Yes.
some conversations for sure.
But others are not afraid to say no. Like, interrogate for yourself. What are you so afraid of? Are you afraid of
Mhm.
their response, or are you afraid of your perception of their response? Those are two different things.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that I said no, this is why I asked you about the having boundaries and using your no as a mark of self-love, as an act of self-love. That's why I asked about this, because so an example from my life is where recently I realized, because I'm in the midst of, book promo, and it's launching on the June 17th, right, is publication day. So I'm like deep in the midst of it. And I realized I don't actually want to do a traditional book tour for multiple reasons, right? But it just seems like it's too much. It is too much. I do have a 9 to 5, right? So 9 to 5 is a full job. All the other things are probably at least 2, 3 other jobs. And I was like, I don't have the capacity to do this. And more importantly, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to do it. And so I said no to a traditional standard book tour. I'm like, okay, fine. It's not happening. I will do some other things, but not that. And that definitely took such a weight off my shoulders and gave me some a little breathing room and some relaxation and some relief from stress. That's another thing as well, is again reframing that no as it is really all about self-care and self-love. That is really what it is all about, and creating space so that you can actually enjoy your life more. And speaking of that, so about creating more space, exhale through boundaries. So I'm asking all of my guests, right, to choose an excerpt from the book that they would like me to read for them. And there is one, when you and I were talking about it, Miss Alexis, right? There is one that we agreed would be absolutely perfect for today, because it has a very special meaning for us both. And to me, it's about what soft living can look like once your boundaries are in place, right? So here goes. So yes, get ready, folks. I'm actually going to do a little reading from the book, read an excerpt. So here we go. Kimonos open. Kimonos open. This is how my good sis Alexis and I end many of our calls. We shout it to each other and then collapse into giggles. It's our little inside joke, or at least it used to be, LOL. Now you all know about it, but we're family, so that's okay. Kimonos open is a vibe, a reminder, a rallying cry. It doesn't have to be literal, although it can be. If you're into robes and kimonos like we are, just think how absolutely comfortable you feel when you're wearing one, especially at home. It's house dress energy, but elevated. Soft, silky, sumptuous. No tight sleeves, no scratchy fabrics, no constricting collars. We're not belting it either. We're wearing it open. We're letting our waistlines breathe. For us, kimonos open expresses the energy of ease. We say it to remind each other to relax, to turn down the type A, always on overachiever energy, to prioritize our restoration, to do less, to be more, to live a soft life. We're retiring the strong Black woman stereotype. We refuse to be anybody's superhero. We're burning our superwoman capes. It's time for the rise of the soft Black woman. Capes off, kimonos on, blankets at the ready. We are in our soft life era. Yes. Alexis, I have to say thank you, because I mean, clearly you are in the book. I quoted you a couple of times, but when I was this is actually how the last chapter of Space to Exhale begins, because to me it encapsulates everything that that the book is about, everything that we want for ourselves and for other people, that we love in our lives, just to live a soft, easy life. And so, yeah, there you go.
Can I
reactions?
so first of all, I remember when we first came up with it, it was by accident, and it
Yes.
still makes me laugh. number one.
Yes.
Number two, when people think of soft, they think of like ease from the standpoint of no hardships. And that's not what
Mhm.
it is. And when if anyone has any sort of angst, internal angst, pushing back against softness, stillness, being versus doing,
Mhm.
I would invite you to ask yourself this question. If you have tons of experience with constriction, with shrinking, with
Mm.
overthinking, with doing all the things, and that shit ain't been comfortable, why not try something different?
Right?
Why not try something different? And, again, my mom framed it up for me in a conversation. She said, I have more days behind me than I have in front of me.
Mhm.
And so when we think about our lives, we often do not think about what we want for the remainder of it. We believe
Yes.
that we must continue business as usual with the same status quo.
Mm.
And we don't. We don't. We have an opportunity to shift. And it doesn't have to be this, you know, seismic shift. It can be a small pivot. And those small pivots can ultimately turn into seismic shifts. If you think about like going to throw a rock in a pond and the ripples that radiate out, they dissipate as the waves ripple out, but you can still see them. They're still felt.
Yes. Ooh. Girl, the wisdom. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Look, I know we're close to time. I'm just going to ask everybody's grace. We need to finish this conversation. I would like to finish it now and just like go on for a little bit longer because I know Alexis has a couple more gems. So those of you who, if you're able to stay with us for a little while longer, please stay. But I will, we'll try and wrap this up quickly. But like I said, tea has been spilled, edges have been snatched, right? But on the topic of tea being spilled, right? I want to talk a little bit, Alexis, very briefly about you and your company, I Matter Coaching and Consulting, which is how we actually had met, before that in a different way, but you have actually been my coach. Wonderful experience, 10 stars out of 5. So I subscribe. Listen, maths was never my strong point. So I subscribe to your newsletter, which is called the Monthly Brew. And so I keep talking about tea because I just absolutely love, your newsletter. I love the title of it. I love the content. And so I just want you to know, I want you to share with our listeners, what is the genesis behind the name, and how does it tie into your consulting work? And you
Okay.
have, listen, because we're already at time and we're trying to like kind of wrap it up, but kind of go on. Just give us the short version. I know there's no short version. Well, listen, if you have
Okay.
time, if
Yeah, I
you
have
have
time.
time, okay, well, then talk the things, talk your talk, as we
Yeah.
say in Barbados.
Hold on before I start lying. Yeah, I got time. I'm fine.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
fine.
good. Well, carry
Okay.
on.
So I have to give context before I give you the tea.
Yes, yes.
So my company's name, I Matter Coaching and Consulting, I started it when I was in grad school in 2021. And so it was born from my thesis. And my thesis was a love letter to Black women. And
Mm,
so my thesis was um, determining if everyday and workplace microaggressive actions, like the frequency of them, impacted your self esteem and therefore your perception of career mobility. So I wanted to understand if there was um, intersectionality between microaggressive factors inside and outside the workplace that impacted your self esteem, which then impacted your perception of what was available within your organization. Newsflash, there was.
yes.
So out of that, I was like, okay, now that I want to be a coach, what is the name? And everybody goes through the name, the name, the name, the name. And I believe in God. And so sometimes I be listening. Other times I know God is like, girl, why? We have had this conversation. But anyway, so this is the one time I listened. And so I wanted my organization at the time, I wanted it to be a love letter to Black women. I wanted Black women to know that they mattered, because
Mm.
oftentimes they don't get that affirmation in their lives. And I wanted to be that space, that safe space where they can come in, kimonos open, no filter. You don't have to come with your hair and makeup done. You ain't got to come with a bra. You just come up as yourself, to be vulnerable, to rebuild yourself, take off those layers, rebuild yourself, because you matter to you, knowing that you matter. So that's how we got the name I Matter Coaching and Consulting. Now,
Mhm.
fast forward, okay? Fast forward. Child, entrepreneurship is just not for the faint. So
Who you
anyway,
telling?
anyway, fast forward, go through all the things, and I start working with a branding strategist. She's on here. Oh, the ever comparable, the brand mother, the ghetto country brand mother,
Oh,
Phyllis.
she's on here.
Yes, she
I'm
was on
such a
here
fan.
earlier. Oh, she was on here earlier. So in a conversation, we were talking, started talking, and by happenstance, we landed on two things that I love: coaching and tea. And in coaching, T stands for other things. But over
Mhm.
here, T stands for transformational empowered action. Because I'm not that coach. God bless any coach who works like this. I'm not the coach who you're going to come to me and week after week, we're going to circle the drain on the same thing.
Yeah.
We take action over here. And if
Yeah.
that's not the style of coaching that you want, that is no problem. There are coaches out there who will just take your money and allow you to keep showing up week after week. I ain't that chick. I want you ultimately to fire me, right? Because we have work to resolve your challenge. So in that conversation, we started talking about tea, and I started playing with it at the end of the last year and trying to figure out what I wanted to rename the newsletter, because it was initially geared towards women. I was like, well, tea. Well, what do you do with tea? Just started thinking about all the aspects of tea. Well, I was like, well, what if we spill tea every month? Well, before you spill tea, you got to brew tea. Oh,
Mm.
snap. Okay. Well, the brew stands for something. It's breakthroughs, reflections, encouragement, and wins. And so
Woo.
every month, I we try to get it together. It is also my love letter to anyone who reads it, um, to showcase that they are not alone, because I know often many leaders feel that they are alone, they're the only ones experiencing this. And that's why I try to use examples from actual clients, again, changing their names, such that people can see in their stories themselves, and then taking them through how this individual was able to either get to the other side, work through their challenges. And then what I started to do was expand further that case in the blog. The blog doesn't have a name, but they kind of go together, but they work independently.
Right.
So
Right.
that's how I ended up at the monthly brew, where we brew and spill leadership tea every month.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. I am such an absolute, I don't know. I subscribe to a lot of newsletters for various reasons. We all do this, right? Yours is one of them that I really look forward to, and I scour it and then I read it and I read it again. And I'm like, ooh, oh, look at this gem. And then, like there's so much rich, robust content. It is, to me, it is not a sales vehicle. And nothing wrong with people who,
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of newsletters are needed sometimes, right? But I love it because I feel better as a human being after I read it,
So my
right?
default is, I want people, any interaction with me, I want you to leave with questions.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that is whether I've posted something on LinkedIn, whether it's the blog, whether it's the newsletter, whether it's just a one-on-one conversation. I want you to leave asking questions. I want you to leave having learned something. I'm a firm believer in education. I'm a firm believer in reading. I'm a firm believer in learning. I am also a firm believer in not gatekeeping shit. I don't gatekeep.
Right.
It's because it serves me no purpose if I have all the knowledge. It sits solely and resides with me. What's the phrase? Okay, but that's a rap lyric. I ain't gonna do that.
You think we're gonna get a cease and desist from the rapper?
Yes. Let me stop while I'm ahead. Suffice it to say, I want to ensure that people feel that they are able to glean information and learn from whatever it is that I put out there into the world. The impact. The word value is overused, and I want to choke it because people use it so much. I want impact. That's what I want to leave people with. I want to leave people with impact.
I must confess that I have an image of you choking the word value now in my head, and it's a very bizarre image. But we'll unpack that when we chat later. But anyhow, okay. So what is next for you? I know you are a woman. You always have things in the pipeline, things planned, things coming up. I mean, I remember when you called me and told me that you're doing this. I don't know if I can mention, but this big national program for Black entrepreneurs and so on. And you told me about that. And I know you always plan something. So what is next? And then where can people find you, online, or to book, better yet, hire her, book her services, hire, pay. You know how I feel about this.
I do.
Okay.
So I will also include that in the show notes for you, just so that people have it. But what am I doing next? So what I completed a couple weeks ago was, so I don't be letting grass grow under my feet, and I'm working on that myself. Okay. I'm working on slowing down on some things, but I recently completed my group coaching certification immediately after completing that global program. Whose name we're not gonna mention right now. I still got some feels about it.
Yes.
But right now, once I'm back from the birthday sabbatical, hey, Tauruses, raise up. It's the best month. It's the best sign. Sorry, Scorpios.
I'll let you have it because my mom, like I said, my mom is here. She's a Taurus, so you have the yes. Tauruses are amazing.
Of course. But my group coaching program, I'm starting, we're launching the second cohort in July. I want to say July 8th. The brain is a little fuzzy right now. July 8th. And so you'll start to see more of those materials. And then next Tuesday is the pro bono giveaway. So that is that's my partnership with BWise, Black Women in Science and Engineering, headed by the fabulous Erica Jefferson. We partnered this year, and so the giveaway is meant for STEM women who have, I don't remember, it's on my thing, at least 10
it's
years
on your
of
thing.
experience.
It's on your thing.
Yeah.
It's on her website. We put all of the information there. It's in the chat. We're also going to add it to the show notes and everything, so people will be able to find you and like I said, book, hire, retain, pay.
Correct. The one thing I will mention is this is the last year. I haven't announced it like all publicly, but this is the last year for the pro bono giveaway for various reasons. But this is the 4th year. This is our 4th year of doing it. And so these last 2 quarters, Q3 and Q4, that's it. Okay. I don't know what I'm birthing for next year, but right now it's going to be the end of an era. And then we're ramping up the group coaching in July.
Wow. Well, I know whatever it is that is coming up next is going to be something big. So I will be watching on as usual, and we will have our, late night or weekend random calls about strategy and sometimes about how people ain't, and all those other things that we talk about. That will continue to happen. So, all right. I think I think we're almost at the end. And thank you again, Miss Alexis.
Absolutely.
Woo, what a session. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. So very important. And as you guys know, I am, I'm the author of Space to Exhale. Publication day is June 17th. June 17th, 2025. And so, just support as much as you can. Pre-order. Pre-orders are super, super important for authors, especially authors of color. And if we're to have any chance whatsoever of making it onto a list or achieving what I would call worldly measures of success, pre-orders matter. So definitely support as much as you can. And again, thank you all for being here, right? This is, episode 2 is now in the books. The first episode with a guest, and no better person. Alexis, this has been amazing. Next week, we actually, I'm excited because we have another amazing guest for you. And so, yes, it is Latrice Torres, who also, she wears many hats. She is the CEO of LeaderKeys Consulting. And she is also actually here behind the scenes, acting as producer on this podcast. So, like I said, she wears many hats. Much appreciation to her, and looking forward, Latrice, to that episode next week. And so, yes, thanks for joining me on Space to Exhale, the podcast. Goodbye for now. And remember, you are worthy of rest. You are worthy of love, and you are worthy of having time and space to exhale. See you next week.